What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of the Empire 161 Show. Believe it or not, we're back for season 3. So let's go. Lisa, what's going on? How you feeling? We got some Yankees baseball on TV and everything. So
listen, today is like Christmas to me. It is the first day of spring training. Baseball, it was a game on first day it was on TV for me. I was having a great time until just now when Detroit went up and it's 8-7 in the bottom of the ninth. So I knew the Yankees to get this together. They only have 3 more outs. But yeah, I'm feeling great today. I am so excited. Baseball's back on TV. It feels right. It feels great. All is well in the world.
Absolutely. I thought we weren't going to have this, but we actually have it back. So
yes.
Super excited to talk about it. Thanks for joining us, whether you're joining us on the Facebook live stream, if you're joining us on Twitter, if you're joining us on YouTube, if you're joining us on Instagram or wherever you found your podcast, Spotify, Apple, iTunes. Thanks for joining us as always. Super appreciate all the support out there, and we can't wait to kick this thing off. So before we jump into it, though, we do have a special guest joining us from another AL East team's podcast, Jays on the Couch. We have Sean Doyle joining us. What is up, Sean? What's going on?
Hello. How are you doing? Thanks for having me back on. It's been, I think, about a year. Things look a little different, so I'm excited to be here and talk some Blue Jays Yankees.
Yeah, no, I was super excited to have you, man. I mean, you know, you guys had a pretty exciting offseason. We've had one way or the other. We'll get into it in a minute, but there was an offseason, so we'll leave it at that for now. But yeah, no, we'll get into chatting with you. Lisa, you want to kick off that quick interview, because I know you got a lot to ask Sean right here. Me and Sean had a little time to talk last year, but you're back. You're meeting him for the first time.
That's right. Know. I'm very excited. So just welcome, Sean. So since last time I joined the show, so that's one thing that looks very different. I figured it would be a little fun for folks to get to know you. Anybody that is just tuning in and didn't meet you last year. So I have a few questions for you. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
All right. My first question is, have you been a lifelong Blue Jays fan?
I actually have. Growing up where I grew up, there wasn't a whole lot of professional sports. And so I would pick up the newspaper, actually steal the neighbors who was just down the hall, flip it quickly to the Blue Jays section back in the days. I think I was maybe been six years old or so, and following George Bell, Jesse Barfield, Lloyd Mosby, like, you know what I mean? Like, how could you not fall in love with the Blue Jays with those guys? So yeah, I ever since I can remember, first baseball cap was a Blue Jays cap. I think I had one of those little cheap gloves with a little Blue Jays logo on it as well. Always have been and probably always will be.
All right. I love that. I love dedication. Ed and I are also lifelong fans of the Yankees. So my next question, you kind of alluded to this a little bit, but without telling us, where are you from then? Like what made you become a Blue Jays fan? Are you Canadian?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. From Halifax, Nova Scotia-ish, around the area of Halifax, Nova Scotia, which is on the very far east coast of Canada. So, you know, about a 2 hour and a half flight to Toronto. So it's been a challenge to try, and thank God the internet was invented and could bring baseball into my home. Because unlike probably a lot of the people following your podcast, I grew up without the internet, and it was a struggle. The struggle was real to find Blue Jays baseball. Growing up in like Boston Red Sox territory is not enjoyable.
No, I can't imagine that.
And at the time, it was Boston and Montreal were the two kind of big teams here down in Nova Scotia, and then the Yankees kind of in and around third. And it took a while for Toronto to grab hold down here, but in 1992 and 93 changed that.
All right.
Back-to-back World Series, of course.
Yeah.
My next question is, did you play baseball growing up? And if so, what positions have you played?
I did, off and on. Growing up, we didn't have a whole lot of money for sports. So I did off and on, and I was second base was my favorite. Absolute favorite. I don't know why. I just fell in love with it. And because usually that's where you tend to stick somebody who can't really use the glove. So maybe that's why I was there. But yeah, and I never tried pitching. I tried it once and I said, no, I can't do this. So it was more of a second base, outfield kind of, reserve bench guy. But listen, if anybody needed water, I could get that. No problem.
All right. I like the honesty. I appreciate that. My next question is, who was your favorite ball player growing up and who is your favorite now?
Oh, that's an easy one. Carlos Delgado. Easy. Didn't come along until I was probably just starting around high school. Before that, it was George Bell. But Carlos Delgado came up, I believe, in 93, the beginning of 93 season, or 94, and went on fire, 8 home runs in April, and I fell in love, and then they sent him back down after that. But his swing from the left side, I'm a lefty as well, there's nothing prettier than Carlos Delgado's swing in my mind. Now, as an adult, I grew to appreciate Roy Halladay, of course, pitching in Toronto in the early 2000s. I think right now, though, my favorite, I have this curse that I come with, that every time I choose a favorite player, they go all like Chuck Knobloch, and they're just terrible, right? It started with Aaron Hill, then Brett Laurie, where are these guys now, right? Orlando Hudson even. So I'm a little hesitant to say, but right now it's Bo Bichette. I just love everything that he brings to the game itself. He plays with such intensity, and he's skilled beyond. So, yeah, I would say Delgado, Halladay, and now Bo Bichette.
Okay.
Bo Bichette almost helped me win my fantasy league last year.
Yeah, and I can't get him.
I'm going to push back on that lefty swing comment. I'm a lefty batter as well, but I personally think Tino Martinez had the most beautiful swing as a lefty.
Yeah, you would say that, wouldn't you?
We were actually.
What? He might be a close second. Maybe a third, because John Olerud also had a beautiful swing as well.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually talking about this with a couple of friends at the bar Friday night, and I don't know how the heck. It's funny that this came up out of nowhere, because we didn't even discuss this beforehand. No. And I couldn't believe I hate to admit it, but I gotta go with Griffey. Ken Griffey Jr.'s swing was I mean, it's like prototype. And I don't like him. I've never liked him. I respect him. Listen, 95 ALDS, him rounding third and scoring and knocking out the Yankees was heartbreaking. It's still it angers me to even talk about it right now. I'm going to change the subject because I don't even want to get into it. But I was 15 years old. It was the first time I saw them in the playoffs. So that was a huge dagger for me. And my favorite player was Don Mattingly growing up. So that was his one shot in the playoffs, and it killed me. It crushes me. But no, his swing was, I mean, come on, it's pretty damn beautiful.
Yeah, I think you win on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but no, Tino was one of my favorite players during the dynasty era as well, so I can't argue with that. It's funny you brought up Jesse Barfield, because as Yankee fans, we're also pretty familiar with Jesse Barfield as well. God, dude had a rocket for an arm in the right field. Man,
yeah,
that was a cannon. I'm sorry, go ahead.
All right, I have 2 more questions for you. What is your fondest memory involving baseball?
Oh, man.
I got my money on something he's going to say.
Ooh. So the first ever game I actually saw live, I went with my wife's family actually took me. And her grandfather, his company, he ran the electric work for the Sky Dome when it was being built. So there was a little kind of a personal connection to the building itself. And so the first game we went to, I believe it was a walk-off win, and it was just something that, any day you go to a ballpark, you're going to see something that you haven't seen before, particularly if it's your first game ever, right? So I think that was pretty special. But I think probably more than that is, I don't even recall the day, but when my son was quite young, just sitting down, lying on the couch together, and he's asking me and I'm explaining the game of baseball. And I think that there's nothing better than that, where you can share something that you're passionate about with somebody, with one of your children. So I think that would probably be my favorite right there.
Oh, I love that one.
That was awesome, actually. That's
a great one.
Well done. I had my money on Joe Carter, but I wasn't sure. Now you've totally. I get why you would even put that ahead of Joe Carter, so it's fine.
Well, actually, Joe Carter's home run gave me stitches.
You have to tell me you caught it or something like that. I might leave the show.
No, we were just watching in the living room, and I happened to jump, and I smashed the ceiling light and cut my hand open, and totally worth it.
For sure, absolutely. I'm pretty sure I told the story on this. When Tino hit the grand slam in Game 1 of the '98 World Series, I was watching at home. I didn't get any injuries, but I almost went through the glass coffee table at my house. I literally jumped off the couch and like went up, and I was caught as I was like gonna land on it too. I was like, oh, whoa, okay, yeah. I keep going. So yeah,
if you buy a glass coffee table, you deserve to have it broken. Like it's gonna happen.
That's what I'm telling him. I try to explain that to my father because I almost broke it twice. It was then, and it was when the Rangers beat the Devils in '94 in the conference finals. So in the '90s, almost broke that damn table twice. I'm surprised. I don't even know what happened to it. I should have broke it on the way out. I'm sorry.
All right, last question for you.
All right.
What is your favorite baseball movie?
Ooh. Mm-hmm. You know, my wife and I were kind of arguing just today at lunch about Field of Dreams, and she hates it, incredibly boring. And listening to her describe it to my son, who's never seen it, and it actually, you know, listening to her, it does sound like a terrible movie. But I don't know what it is. It's going to sound really bad. And I can't even remember the name of it, but the Tom Selleck movie where he goes to Japan.
Mr. Baseball.
Yes. I don't know why. It's not a great movie. It's Tom Selleck is terrible. But I love that movie, and I can't for the life of me, you know. And then of course Moneyball. But I'm a huge Brad Pitt fan, so
okay.
Literally I would watch him, you know, recite the alphabet. So
I would too, but probably for different reasons.
No, I bet you not. Ask my wife; she'll tell you.
Yes,
that's great. We got a couple of quick comments we want to get to right here. Steve Faraci, obviously, you know, head of Pop Culture Pros, chiming in. What's up, Steve? How's it going?
Hey, Steve.
He actually put me in touch with Sean, so that's how, you know, we met here. And Hanser, the person who plays softball and is a big Yankees fan watching the show. Thanks, Hanser. Saying Toronto is the team to beat. So we'll see how that goes. We're going to get into that in a little while when we talk about some Blue Jays in their offseason. And pretty sure, Hanser, that better be for us, Hanser. It better not be for the Blue Jays to go get the two pitchers from Oakland. Because that would just be obscene. And we're going to have a talk at the softball field next week. So we'll get into that. All right, so why don't we go ahead, and there are some big changes coming to Major League Baseball down the pipeline, because with the CBA came some big stuff, and the first immediate one to jump out here is the installation of the universal DH. Yes. So if you haven't been paying attention, the big change coming is there's no more pitchers hitting in the National League. There is a DH in both leagues now. So I guess we can kind of go quick round table about this. Lisa, what do you think? What are your feelings on the National League ditching pitchers hitting now?
I think it's about time. I think the National League should have made that decision a long time ago. The only pitcher that it's ever been exciting for me to watch hit has been Shohei Ohtani, because he's just phenomenal. So I kind of hope he could still. Well, it does. I kind of hope he could still opt in like he did last year with the Yankees, even though it didn't work well for him as a pitcher. But yeah, I just think it makes more sense. You know, when you see the American League pictures when they play games in National League fields and you see their swings, my 11-year-old nephew swings way better than them. So it's kind of embarrassing. And most of them just lay down a bunt, or they just sit there with the bat on their shoulders, standing upright. And it's just, a waste of a batter. So I think this will limit the amount of injuries that pitchers potentially can get when they're running the bases. And I'm all for it.
Great. Sean, what are your thoughts on the universal DH?
Yeah, I agree 100%. One thing I like about it is, if I'm a team who spent $25, $30 million on a pitcher, Garrett Cole, for example, I don't want him risking any more injury than possible. As soon as he's done pitching, wrap him in bubble wrap. Don't let anybody near him. I don't want him going up there and, potentially getting beamed in the head or running the bases or whatever. So that's the first thing I like about it. But the other thing too, is that it allows more players to kind of continue their career a little bit. Right. And I think of guys like Edwin Encarnacion, for example. He maybe could have had a couple of extra years, things like that, guys like that I think, if there was 15 other teams that he could play for, his career may have lasted a little bit longer. So I do like that element of it. And I agree. It's just a waste watching a pitcher step into that batter's box. It's embarrassing. I agree.
It is, especially with their interleague play with the, like Lisa mentioned, like the American League pitchers have to do it. They're not used to doing this at all. A lot of major league pitchers in general, whether AL or NL, they're not swinging the bat since like college. So then it's like, oh, by the way, here, go hit major league pitching. Good luck with that. And that's why we get the results that we get. And it's ridiculous. I know there's been a lot of National League fans because, we both cheer for American League teams. So we grew up with the DH and stuff like that, and it's more natural to us. There's been a couple of National League fans I know that are like, oh, what about double switching? And it takes the strategy out of the game and this and that. It doesn't – I've always appreciated that. I'm not going to lie. Like, there is something to be said for it. But I also don't think it's worth the payoff. Like, how many times are we going to see these embarrassing at-bats in the first couple of innings just to get one double switch or one thing? Like, a lot of times relievers are coming in. They're never going to hit anyway because they're going to put them in. They're going to take them out before that at-bat comes. And that's it. So it doesn't really matter. And you're right, Sean, though. It does last. Some older players that can still hit will be able to prolong their careers, and I don't mind seeing that. Plus, I want to see professional at-bats versus just guys hoping to barely make contact, or like Lisa mentioned, just stand there, take 3 pitches because they're being told not to take the bat off their shoulders because they don't want them to get hurt. So that one double switch is just not worth it. It's not worth all the crap that you got to put up with just to get to that.
The other thing it does, too, is that when you look at how the DH spot is being used these days in baseball, it's not just a designated spot in the order for one person, right? They tend to cycle through and all of that stuff, keeping guys fresher for 162 games and all of that. So now, the National League can benefit from that as well. So I think there's that strategy argument. I appreciate it because I felt like it was a smarter version of the game. Well, at least for, that one inning that it happens. But I think there's strategy in how you use that DH spot now. And, no matter what Major League Baseball does, no matter what rule they change, the teams and the players are going to figure out, you can ban the shift if you want, but they're going to figure out a different way and kind of use that strategic approach that we love so much. They'll just use it in a different way anyway. So I like the versatility that it can bring to a roster, I guess.
Yeah. Well, no, I was going to say we just traded Luke Voigt, who would have essentially been an everyday spot for him because he's a DH with a bat, like I've joked about on this show. Pretty much, he's not a very good first baseman. And you're right, you could cycle in guys because we know guys are going to take this rest days all over the place. For every team does it now. It's not just like one team because Yankee fans will rip the Yankees for resting their players too much, but I'm sure every fan base is going through it. But you're right, you could have Stanton in one day, you could have Judge in another day, whoever it is, you can cycle through. And you're right, it'll you get to see them more often and get to see them play in one way or another. So that's it. I think there's a lot of things to be beneficial about it. Lisa, go ahead.
No, I was just going to make a comment on what Sean said regarding the shift too, but I can wait until we go talk about that.
Well, no, that's a perfect segue because the thing is that's actually not going to be until next season. So the universal DH is going to be in immediately. Next season is when more of the big changes come in, and we can kick it off with that, the banning of the shift. I mean, Lisa, go ahead. What are your thoughts on banning the actual shift in baseball instead of the argument of, just go the other way stuff?
So, I mean, my thought is, listen, you get paid a lot of money. Figure out how to hit the ball the other way. Because when somebody does that, like, it's beautiful. And you can get a base hit even if you just bunt the other way. Like, you're a guaranteed base hit if you hit the other way. Likely going to get a double if you hit it hard. But then my thing is, to Sean's point, I was listening as I was watching the game today. They mentioned that if they set limits on the defensive shift, it just means that there has to be two players on both sides of second base. And they did a shift today during the game where that was basically what it was. The shortstop was like right next to second base on one side, second baseman right on second base on the other. So it eliminates line drives up the middle, but there's still that big gap between third base and shortstop. So I don't know. I mean, I felt like they were abusing it too much while it was happening. So I'm glad there's discussions around either getting rid of or limiting it because I don't know. It did take away from the fun of the game a lot because you would see a guy, hit the ball and the defensive guy would just be like, bah, like he didn't even have to move. The exciting thing was when a player dove for the ball or they made a great stop to it and then threw the ball to first, like I think about the famous Jeter throw. Like, would we ever see that again if they keep doing the shift? Probably not. It's not going to be as exciting. Or even like the double play moves that people make that are just so fun to watch. I want to see more of that. I want to see more of the athleticism with guys, not the strategy. Strategy is it's smart, obviously, but it's not as fun to watch.
It's fair. Those are all very fair points. I can definitely echo a lot of that. Sean, what do you think about the shift ban or limiting?
Yeah, I mean, at first I was a fan of it, actually, especially because I believe it was Joe Madden and the Rays who were like shifting and everybody was like, what are they doing? Oh my God, this is revolutionary. And now, as Lisa said, it's just everybody's doing it. And it's to the point where it is too much. I agree. What I do like about it, though, is that there is that chance that that they're giving you a free base hit. Right. Sometimes we talk about the bunt and whether or not, you're going to give the team another out. Well, cool. I'll take a free out. Sure. But I'll also take a free hit. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So there is that side of it, too, that I guess the problem is not many people can actually do that, and on command. And I don't know, I don't know where I stand on just learn to do it because, it's really tough if somebody's throwing you a 95 mile an hour fastball just to say, just put it over there,
Yeah. Well, easier said than done.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'd like to see some limits on it. But again, I'm not really a fan of the Major League Baseball putting its fingers into the game of baseball too much anyway. So that's, that's my bias that I bring to this discussion.
So I guess at first I was pretty much against it. Like, go the other way, bunt, do something. Like, cut the crap. We've seen Wade Boggs do it. Over time, Mattingly, great hitters, line-to-line hitters, and stuff like that. Just do that. But I don't know. Over time, maybe it's because of someone who's. Being my favorite sport is baseball, though, but. I also very much into basketball, the NBA and the NFL and NHL. And all those professional leagues, though, they've had to institute some sort of an illegal defense over time as the game has gone on. So the more I thought about it, I'm kind of like, maybe this is just baseball's turn. It's caught up. The analytics people have put together these spray charts and stuff, and now you're limiting the offense too much. And the also analytics department comes up with the solution of being, we'll just put it in the seats. So swing for the fences and they can't catch that, which we know as strikeouts have piled up, batting averages have went in the toilet. So it's kind of like, all right, well, you can take the base hit, but you're also being told to swing for the fences. So which is it? As a hitter, you're like, all right, what the hell? What do I do? Because it's almost like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So I kind of would like to see a limit. I don't want to see the shift banned completely. Like, hey, that's it. You're never allowed to shift on anyone again. Some sort of limitation. Maybe you get to do it on a certain amount of times a game, or maybe you can't just do the extreme shift where there's someone in short right field or short left field, and kind of like Lisa, how Michael K draws up the martini glass, triangle defense that's there. Maybe not that. There's some version where you only can do certain amounts, something like that. To see it completely disappear, I think I would feel it'd be a little cheap. Where you kind of find an easy way out.
Yeah, he did say something about there has to be 2 people on each side of second base, and the outfielders can't be on the dirt.
Okay. All right, so there's something there. And I know I've also seen times where, again, the Rays, I know, Sean, you mentioned Joe Madden, and I'm sure he's taken it to the Angels too, where they've actually had 4 outfielders at times against some powers, like Joey Gallo is one of the hitters I've seen that done to. And that's something that maybe you should limit that as well. Like, maybe you shouldn't have that option. Just, hey, you can't have that guy just go switch his glove out and go run to the outfield and do that. I wasn't listening to the telecast earlier. I was kind of running around. But I know there's been some talks of like the limits, and it hasn't been like finalized exactly what the details of this defensive shifting is going to be. But I'm interested to see what that is. But then also to this argument is Joe Madden, when he was asked years ago, why do you shift on Robinson Cano? And his answer was, we don't want him to put it in the seats. We want him to hit singles. We just don't want him to try to hit doubles and home runs. So we'll live with a single. We just think he's too dangerous to go ahead and to do that. And I think that's part of the element too, is that there are managers who will give you the base hit. They don't care. They'll obviously, bases loaded or something like that, running in scoring position. No, but base is empty. Go ahead. Single all the way. Go ahead. That's fine. Single, walk, we'll take it. We just don't want you to put your A swing on it. And that's what they're trying to prevent. So I think it's a lot more complicated than people think. It's just like, oh, you're being stubborn. You just want to hit for power. Not so easy whatsoever.
And they may be able to accomplish that by taking, just drawing the line. Infielders need to stay on the infield and outfielders need to stay on the outfield. Or, if you're going to bring somebody over to short right field, then it should just be your second baseman, right? And then you give up that hole. You think that maybe there's a balance to be struck so that, if you're okay with giving Robinson Cano a single up the middle or whatever have you, then cool. We'll play our second baseman to the right field, and then there's a hole for him there, right? Like, I agree. I think there is a solution to be found. I just don't know how they're going to get there when it's a ban the shift is where they're starting from.
Yeah. So I'm thinking limits is probably what it has to be. Another change that's coming next season, though, is the pitch clock, which, from what I understand, I know they tried it in the minor leagues and it seems to be successful, so that's why we're going to be getting it next season. And from what I've read, there's a lot of fans and commentators and stuff who are just kind of like, you don't really notice it, honestly. Once it's there, it does pick up the pace of play, but you don't ever really – it's not like you're staring at the clock like a shot clock in the NBA where you're like, oh, no, hurry, throw the ball, like it's going to go off or something like that. Thoughts on the pitch clock?
How long is it going to be, did they say?
I haven't seen a timer on it just yet. I thought it was 20 seconds or 24 seconds might be, so it might be close to a shot clock.
So this is in between pitches?
Yeah, like none of the walking around and taking the time and then rubbing up the ball and adjusting your sleeve and all this other stuff.
Okay, well, that's all said and done. What about all the players in the batter's box that are readjusting their gloves, stepping out to like shift their crotch or like
batting gloves and everything?
Yeah, and like all these things that they got to spit and then they have to touch the bat 3 times and hit the top. Like that's not the pitcher's fault. If the pitcher can't pitch because the batter's not in the batter's box, I don't see how you're going to be able to control that. I also know that they have that like in between innings that I don't know if it's 2 or 3 minute thing that like when I'm at a live game, I can see that clock and that clock always runs down and they still didn't start the inning yet. So I don't know. I mean, conceptually, I guess I understand that they want to move the game along a little bit. Baseball is a very lengthy sport to watch per game. But I don't know. I don't see how they'll be able to enforce that unless it's just like it's automatic that like Like, what happens when the pitch clock runs down? Does the batter automatically get like an extra ball in his favor or something? Is there a balk if there's a guy on base? Like, or does he just get fined? So I think I need a little bit more, like, I need more details about how they're going to enforce it and what the consequences are. But I still don't see how they'd be able to if it's still like, I think you need to focus more on the batters.
Well, there actually is a rule that was passed in the previous CBA where batters are not, you're supposed, and once you take a swing and everything, then you're allowed to step out of the box. But if you're taking a ball, it was just a pitch that wasn't offered at, you're supposed to not be able to leave the box. And it's never enforced. Never enforced. I think the first year it came in, it was like, oh, let's see what happens. And it still wasn't then. It was like, oh, well, you got until May to adjust. Then it was like June. And then it just disappeared and no one ever talked about it then.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that keeps coming up in my head when you want to talk about the time that it takes. Like, and Lisa has a great point. Like, well, what are you going to do? Right? Like, if Max Scherzer's on the mound and he wants to take 25 seconds instead of 24, what are you going to do? Really? At the end of the day, are you going to walk up there? Does he get a base? Does it, whatever, that needs to be sorted out. But my concern really, and listen, past few years, Blue Jays fans have had to sit through Rafael Dolis and his hour and a half between pitches. We've had, and going back even further, Jason Fraser was the human rain delay. So, I get it. I'm not one of the people who thinks that baseball's too long. What I don't like, though, is when a player takes too long.
Right.
So that, to me, and I get why they do it, mess with timing. If the team's on a momentum or whatever, you're getting shelled and you just need a breath. I get it. But my real concern has to do with pitchers' health. They're out there and exerting so much force and effort on their bodies in a way that wasn't meant to happen to the human body. So I worry about injuries, and then the only way to know for sure is a longitudinal study, right? Like something years from now, and I still think, like, when you look at working pitchers hard, right? The Blue Jays rode David Price in 2015. I believe they took years off of his career because they were at him every start, and then when it came to playoff time, it was like, you're pitching because you're the best we have. And so I think there is something, the wear and tear that the body takes. I think, to expect them to just hurry up and then throw another 98-mile-an-hour fastball, I don't know. I think you're asking for trouble.
Yeah, I agree with you, though. I'm also someone who's like, I don't think baseball goes on too long. I think there's part of the beauty of the game is that there is no clock, right? You can't, like in football, you can't just run the clock out, or, when you're up by a lot, or everything. You have to earn every single out. Like, you're going to be bottom of the ninth, you're down 10 with 2 outs. You technically, obviously it's highly unlikely, but you technically have a chance, right? You could rally, you could do something, and things can get a little crazy. So instituting all these clocks, I think, could be problematic, though, like you're saying. Like, if a pitcher and a catcher can't get on the same page, then that could lead to some problems, because that's usually what it is. Like, they're going through signs. Yeah. There's strategy there, and that's what I think the average fan doesn't usually pay attention to, is that there's a silent action to baseball. There's a lot going on. It's a huge chess game, and to rush that up, I think, could be problematic. But, I mean, I guess we'll see. I mean, maybe there'll be more pre-game meetings to go over this and to kind of hammer this whole thing through so they can speed up. We do got a comment here from Raul Velasquez Jr. Raul's a Mets fan, actually, and he does check out our show and supports the show. So thanks, Raul, for that. I like the pitch clock rule in 2023, 15 seconds with no runners on base, 20 seconds with runners on base. I mean, that is going to be something that's I don't know. I'm curious to see how much it actually speeds up. Like, so I want to see the time.
Yeah, I also have another question. When does it start? Like, once the pitcher receives the ball back from the catcher is when it starts?
Yeah, I'm going to guess that's when it is. That once he gets the ball back, then you're on the clock.
15 seconds is like an eye blink. Like, that's going to go by so quickly. Oh, my goodness. And yeah, Sean, I like your point about health, too. Like your body. To rush into that next pitch. especially with like the different changes in weather that you experience over the course of a baseball season, like in the beginning of the year and then at the end of the year, if you're in the playoffs and it's November, like I could just see that can be a lot more injuries happening. So curious to see in the long term how that's affected.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Another thing that's coming is so larger bases are going to be instituted a little bit, which I'm kind of like, all right, at first base, I can kind of see that in a way, because I do see that there are a lot of injuries at first base where, the pitcher's going to go cover or the first baseman's going to cover, you get spiked. Injuries can happen there.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure how much this is really going to play a difference in anything, really, per se. I mean, this just might be a rule just to change the rule. If they were just saying first base will be larger, I can actually kind of understand that. Like in softball, we have a runner's back.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't mind. I know some like purists would lose their mind about it. Like, oh my God, like that's a softball thing. It's not a baseball thing. I can understand that for safety purposes. But larger bags all around just seems a little bit weird to me.
Yeah, I tweeted out the other day when I heard that a picture because I think that Major League Baseball has a marketing issue in that they keep telling the world that their game is boring. So in all honesty, I wouldn't be surprised if their suggestion for new bases were just pillows. 4 pillows around the diamond, and like other than the injuries at first base, I see no possible reason to change the size of the base unless it's that they're worried that their umpires are just getting too many calls wrong. Like maybe that's the only thing I can see. Oh, now I can see the base. That works. Yeah. Okay, cool. But like I joke, of course. I just can't see a positive reason for changing the bases.
Yeah, it seems a little bit weird. Lisa, what do you think of the larger bases or their potential impact?
Yeah, I mean, when I saw that as one of the things that's going to be considered, I was like, okay. Like, I don't understand the logic behind that at all. I think one of the things that's most impressive about like going back to the athleticism is running that 90 feet in between bases. So, Sean, you might not know this about me because we just met, but I played for the Yankees fantasy camp 5 years in a row, their women's camp in Tampa, and we played on Steinbrenner Field, and those spaces are freaking far apart. I would need like an asthma inhaler in between, and I was one of the most in shape people on my team and the youngest on my team for like 4 of the 5 years, and I'd be like, whoo, like so. That alone is impressive. Like, geez. So that's just, it's going to take a few inches off of that, and maybe it'll help some slower player. I don't know. Like when I think of how fast Brett Gardner was, like that would make his, his speed and agility that much more impressive looking. So like for that alone, it would be cool. But I don't necessarily need that. And like you said, I don't think whatever it is, an inch in diameter or whatever, like I don't think that's really going to help the umpires anyway. I think, I don't see the benefit of that consideration. Maybe if they can explain it more, I would reconsider it.
But these are the same people who continuously change the ball in which the game is played, right? And they don't even have consistent rules across the league for how you store those balls. You have some teams putting them in humidors, you have some teams not, and then we remember, what was it, maybe 2-3 years ago, everybody was getting blisters.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these are the same people who are changing the baseball just because they're trying to create more offense, I assume, is the only solution, because again, the game is boring, so I don't, I'm not surprised that they would suggest bases. I just don't see any logical reason for it.
Yeah.
And the roles also agreeing with us here. I don't mind bigger bases, but the issues of double base at first base, like in softball, to avoid injuries. Definitely with you on that one. And I also would say the other big thing that's coming is we're getting another step closer to robo-umps, per se. Thoughts on an automatic computer-generated strike zone versus the human element behind the plate? I mean, I'll start off with it. I'm personally fine with getting the calls right I mean, that's just what it is. Like when people we institute a replay, oh, that's going to slow the game down. It's going to drag the game along. Get the calls right. Like that's kind of where I'm at with it. And I do understand there's a human element to, it's just a little bit off the plate. Like you got like I hate the fact that every umpire has their own strike zone. That throws me. Listen, it's letters to knees over the plate, imaginary box. Throw it in there. It's not up for you to interpret what you think the strike zone is. And I think it's because umpires have gotten worse. They've gotten dramatically worse.
Yeah, over the last couple of years, when you see the replay, it's like brutal. And I get it. They have, like less than a second to make a decision. But they were calling things that were like 2-3 inches off the plate, like disgustingly out of the zone. And then and then like for certain players, like listen, Aaron Judge is 6'7", whatever he is, and you're calling something for him that would be like, it's a completely different fit for somebody that's shorter, like Brett Gardner. Like, come on, you have to adjust the strike zone for how tall the player is. Yeah. And some of the umpires, they just inconsistent. One game they're calling it great. The next game that they're in, that they're the home plate umpire, they're not. Like, and I don't know. I think that part's, like you could debate that because of a whole bunch of things. But what I would like to see is like, I want to do umps get fined? Like I know players complain, teams complain about them, and then certain umps can't go into the playoffs based on how many, like their ratings and whatnot. But like, how about they get fined too for really messing up a lot? Because I feel like last year alone, they blew so many calls in game. I know Ed and I talked about this a lot last year, just like from all the games we went to. It was kind of embarrassing, some of the calls they made that were like really egregious out of the zone calls. So I feel like I'm more for automated. I still feel like you need somebody back there just in case too, because, technology glitches out all the time. So you don't want to fully rely on it. But there's a small part of me that's like, let's just get the umpires to do a better job. Okay. Especially because how is the automated thing going to call the play at home? Like, I get if it's just balls and strikes we're talking about, but like you still need somebody to call that play at the plate too.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that if the umpires had a consistent strike zone, and it was the same, like the strike zone, not your strike zone or his strike zone, and the old school announcers are always like, oh, you just got to learn his strike zone and you got to work play within it. No, you don't. There's a strike zone. It exists. Like that's that. So I think that's the first thing they got to do. But this is what happens when you have. We can make a change, but that doesn't mean you should, right? And Major League Baseball is all about change. They love changing their game, but that doesn't mean they should. And I don't know that necessarily just throwing everything out and going electronic is the answer. I think let's start, as you guys are saying, let's start with consistency first. My real issue isn't necessarily that an umpire gets a call wrong, because they are human beings. That's not my issue. My issue is that when they get a call wrong, they know they get a call wrong, and they enjoy the it's my call. I'll toss you if and there's no accountability in that sense. And I like, Lisa, you're getting at with the fines, right? Like that's my issue with umpires. It's the accountability, the oversight needs to be better, whatever. And I know they have their own union too, so there's negotiations going on with them as well. And I'm sure there are issues that we don't hear about because we never hear about their contract negotiations. So, maybe this is a big topic of debate between them and Major League Baseball. But I think that just get it right. And I think you don't replace everybody to get it right. I think you just make them get it right.
No, agreed. So I think the other things that we can talk, the next big one we can talk about here before there's some smaller ones that are coming, is the new playoff format. There's now 12 teams in the playoffs. The one and done wild card game is no more. We have 3 wild card teams, and they will be going ahead and facing off in a best of 3 where the higher seeded team has home field advantage all 3 games. And the tiebreakers for, if you're tied at 162 games, they're just going to go to NFL style and go to statistics, head-to-head, division record, things like that to decide who it is. So there will be no more game 163. Thoughts on the new playoff format, and what were your thoughts on the old one? Because we just got that, and that didn't last too long before we had to up it again. And I think we probably all had the feeling after 2020 when the 60-game season happened and they played around with the format that this was going to be coming. Like they were going to expand it again, and it is what it is. But Sean, what are your thoughts on the new playoff format?
Well, you're coming from the perspective of a guy whose team missed the playoffs last year by one game. That I think that matters. That you finish the AL East is so tough. It's not going to be any different this year. The positions may change, of course. Wink, wink. But
we'll see.
But you finish 20 games over 500 and you miss the playoffs. Like that's absolutely insane. So make it a little bit bigger. Sure. Okay, cool. Certainly not having half the league make the playoffs that you can't, right? You can't have a watered down version. You get your 500 team going on to win the World Series like the Cardinals did. I forget what year that was. It feels like forever ago. But,
yeah.
So I like that. I cannot stand the one game play, and that is ridiculous. I always felt like the wild card series was just there just because, it was kind of a foregone conclusion, more or less. There was some exceptions, of course, but so I think the changes, I'm okay with it. What I would love to see, part of me wants to see realignment, because you have one division in all of sports that is the most difficult division anywhere. And of course, that's the AL East, right? And that I would love to see that shaken up. I don't know how. If you look geographically, Toronto really should be in the Central Division. But
hold on, no, you guys aren't getting out of the AL East. That's not happening. No. Don't try to go to the Central because we know you guys would definitely be in it. Probably like most years. Then that division is ridiculous. But I'm sorry.
No, and you're right. You're right. But I don't know what the right answer is, but I'm glad to see that they're going with more teams, even if it is just a couple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lisa.
I think that game 163, every team plays 3-game series, right? So like to have that 1-game playoff to determine whether you can get into the divisional series, like I just think that's a tough look. And the Yankees have certainly just missed the playoffs, or gotten in that wild card game and lost it because of like one bad play in one inning. And that's tough. When any team that's in that 1-game playoff game, that's just tough to face. You have to have 3-game series. It has to be the best of in order to determine who should move on. So I think this just makes sense for like what you do throughout the entire year. And I'm glad that they're changing it to do this. And like you said, Sean, I'm really happy that more teams will be invited into it too. I think that's pretty exciting too. That'll be ways for, like folks whose teams just miss it regularly get to be like, have more excitement, have to extend their seasons, is to see their teams play in these games as well. And who knows, because it's now a 3-game series, either of the teams could win. And that's pretty cool too. So
yeah,
we'll
and I
it
do.
Turns out.
I honestly enjoyed. I think for the most part, I did enjoy the 1-game wild card. I did, because for me it was instant Game 7, and I'm not saying it was fair, because it's definitely not fair for baseball. Baseball is based on series, and I get that. But I think it's more in the case of it was just did it bring excitement? Yeah,
Yes.
I mean the Yankees have been involved in their share of wild card games, and your heart's like about to rip through your chest most of the game for every single pitch, because you're like, it's all on the line in this one game. And I think that's what they were going for. They wanted it to be must-see TV because it was highly unusual and it wasn't baseball-like. It was very, very unlike it. and it almost brought like an NFL element to baseball where it was just one and done. But I do agree that the best of three is more of a natural fit for baseball. You're getting more markets involved, which is what ultimately every sport wants to do. But I agree with Sean. Sean, you made a great point, is that you don't want it to be the NHL or the NBA where you literally have half the league in it. Because then you're watering it down, and it's like, all right, the regular season only means so much. And I think that I am a little concerned that they're going to keep going with this and keep expanding, but I think you might have found the right element here. And I think giving the higher seeded team all three home games is the right thing to do, because the wild card team should be at every disadvantage that you have. You want the best teams to advance ultimately, and you want it to be difficult. You want them to go through their top three in their rotation. If they have to go through 3 games, go on a road to beat that team. By the time they get to the ALDS, they're taxed. They're starting their 4th pitcher, most likely, because they have to go right into it. There's really no off times and stuff. And you also have the other teams that have the buys, the top 2 seeds, as they're only getting not even a handful of days off. You're getting 3 days off, and then it's like 3 or 4 days off, and then it's right into it. Because you also, for baseball-wise, you don't want them sitting around too long, because then that's also not the everyday feel that baseball has. So I think they hopefully have struck the right chord in the 3-game set that's here.
And the other thing I think too, that like you wouldn't have an off season like the Blue Jays have had perhaps if you don't have to win as many games to get into the postseason. You know, you don't have to, because the regular season, it's a grind, and you need to build your team in a certain way with depth, whereas a postseason team, you don't. It's not about depth, it's about your best, right? And it's a different game, sure. But I think there's incentive to build your roster if there are fewer teams that make it into the postseason. And so some teams could say, you know what, if I can get in being a 500 team, I don't need to sign a Carlos Correa or whoever, right? I can just coast in. So I do like that part of it.
And this is another thing that could be coming too. And Raul makes a good point, because this is the last thing I wanted to shout out before we talk about a couple of other things. There might be the end of the AL and the NL at some point, and just go east-west like the other, even the NFL has NFC and NFC, AFC and NFC, but I mean, honestly, it's pretty much the same thing, really. And they all play each other. Because the other thing that's coming is they're also not going to have interleague play be as special. Every team is going to face every team every season starting next year. So I agree. I do wonder, and the universal DH and all this other stuff seems like it is heading in that direction where you're going to have just Major League Baseball, and that's it. And the division-heavy schedule is not going to be there. You're not going to face the Yankees and Blue Jays are not going to face 19 times anymore. They'll face 16 times or 13 times or whatever it is. Thoughts on where that might be headed? Or I mean, are you for or against the maybe abolishing of the leagues that we have currently?
I think it's a great idea. But the only thing I don't like is that the American versus national leagues, I think there's a historical thing there that to me, I think I'd like to see them keep it at the very least. If you're going to do an East-West, just call it American and national, just to keep the recognition that they were 2 separate leagues. But that's a small thing. And that's only my personal preference. So, but I do like just separate them into the 2, and then you could get, New York and Toronto don't play each other as often, but then, you don't have that AL East issue where, you've got to win. If you have to win 150 games to get into the postseason, so that personally, I would go for that.
Lisa?
I think it's a great idea. I'm like you, Sean, in terms of like there's certain things about baseball that I don't want to see change too dramatically, and AL and NL have like really big connotations to the fans, So I like that if it is East and West, just call them American and National League. I think that would be a great idea. That's like in football, isn't it? The AFC and the NFC.
Yeah.
So just do that. And then the other thing is, if you play folks from, I'll go with the Yankees. If the Yankees play more folks from the National League, one, it gives us more places to go visit, and also gives us opportunities to see outstanding players in the other league, right? And you only get to see them maybe once a year, depending on what team it is, and you have to hope that the player is playing in the game that day, right? So.
Yeah.
So I think it's more opportunities for folks to see the dynamic players from all the leagues, going to visit different places in the country. Like it definitely promotes travel and going to other cities, going to Canada more. I think it would be nice to do that as long as they keep it American and National League.
Oh, for sure. And a couple of other quick things I'll just throw out there before we move on is, so the All-Star game could be decided by a home run derby after 9 innings and no extra innings, so they don't tax it and everything. So that would be very much. Sean, I actually don't think we talked about this. Are you a hockey fan as well?
I am not.
You're not. Okay, it's funny. So I'm the American guy. It was the hockey fan, but the game it's not. That's interesting. But that seems like
way to buck that stereotype. I love it.
No, I was wondering. I'm like, I think we did talk about this. And I thought it was awesome that it's like, nah, baseball's my sport. Screw that.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh wow, Faraci actually has a comment about this. Brutal,
yeah,
Faraci.
that's okay. That's okay.
But yeah, so they have a shootout after a brief overtime. It was a 5-minute overtime, and then they have that. So it kind of seems to reminisce of it. And the shootout in hockey, I think, is actually extremely exciting. Purists hate it. For the All-Star game, I actually think that's kind of fun if it does happen. And they go with the 9 innings, and instead of taxing everyone and taxing pitchers, because managers, when they're watching All-Star games, they're like, "Oh God, don't put my pitcher in, please. Just let him sit, just let him rest." Like they don't want them in. So this could be a way to save some arms. I dig it. I don't want it in a regular season. Obviously, no, that would be completely insane. But are we for or against the home run derby ending an All-Star game? That is an exhibition now. It has no bearing on anything.
I mean, if it's just one guy representing each team, okay, sure. Because really, let's be real, like people watch the home run derby.
Yeah, I love it.
And the game itself, it's maybe sometimes it's a second place draw that weekend. So I get why they would want to do that. And if it's just one, but if it goes into rounds and rounds, like the home run derby lasts an awful long time. And I got to say, like living here in Nova Scotia, where I'm an hour ahead of you guys, so if the All-Star game is on the West Coast, I'm done. I'm in bed before the thing even starts. Like that's how late it is, right? So if it takes forever, I'm not, but if it's one player versus one player and you have to choose right on the spot and all of that stuff, and they build it up that way, okay, sure, it could be fun. But as long as it doesn't end in a tie like Bud Selig did, that's all.
No, anything but that. Anything but that. Jesus, that was embarrassing. Lisa, what do you think?
I mean, I think it could be fun. Yeah, I agree with Sean. I don't want it to go on forever. My only gripe with the home run derby is that sometimes it's just like, it's only like the first round. And it's like 2 hours long in the first round. I'm like, come on. I want to get to the end. I want to get to the final two. But at the same time that, for the All-Star game, managers are worried about their pitchers not playing. Aren't we worried about our home run hitters getting hurt too, So I feel like the same thing can happen. Like, what if Shohei Ohtani is one of the representatives and he has back spasms after that because he hit 40 home runs in one round? I don't know. I'm exaggerating big time, obviously. But, like, what if that happens? Mike Trout, what if that happens to them and then they can't play for a couple months?
Yeah.
So it's also that to worry about. But yeah, it would be kind of cool to, especially because the game itself, I watch the game just for fun, but I really tune into the home run derby. So.
Oh, we also usually have a pool.
That's
we have a pool going, so we also throw in like
in the first round, so whatever.
Sean, we also pick the names out of a hat. So
yeah, it's random.
Anyone. So it's totally random, and then you start cheering for somebody. You have no business cheering for at all, and they're your favorite player for that night.
No, that
I
makes it
actually had
fun.
Pete Alonso last year.
You
So
did.
Yankees fan cheering for the Mets home run hitter there. I was like, I don't care, whatever, let's go. Win me some money, my friend. That's it. Yeah, a couple other quick changes though is there's going to be apparently advertisements on the helmets, and there's going to be on the sleeves. Whatever. I mean,
No.
I know we were gonna disagree on this. Personally, again, I'm someone who watches the NBA. I don't really, you don't see it as much. The first 10 games you see it, and then you don't care. We also all have the Nike swoosh, pretty large Nike swoosh on our chest now. I like Nike, so it doesn't bother me as much. So, Sean, what are I know Lisa's thoughts. We're gonna get to this. So, Sean, what are your thoughts on the advertisements and also the Nike swoosh that some people lost their minds about last season?
Yeah, I don't know. The Nike swoosh kind of surprised me a little bit when I first saw it. I guess I wasn't paying attention or something, and oh, that's new. Okay, I don't know. I think it's a money grab.
Yes.
That's the only way I can see it. I just don't like it. I don't, the Toronto Blue Jays brought to you by Honda just doesn't have the same, or the big H on the side of it. Like, I don't know. I don't like it. I think that the one thing that I did like about Major League Baseball is that it is its own entity and that the teams are their own entity. And if you start the pinstripes, as much as I hate the New York Yankees and their pinstripes, sullying the pinstripes with an ad that's sacrilegious, and I can't I can't get on board with that.
Okay. I think I'm more in the sense of seeing how crazy it gets.
I'm mad you're making me wait.
No. I'm just jumping in quick before I turn to you because I know I can see you're like jumping at the bit. No, it's just that I just don't want it to be like I hate soccer, but European soccer has like Nike, and then it's like, oh, the Yankees on the sleeve. Like, no, I'm not watching the corporate Nike team play who have a Yankees ad on their side. So, Lisa, go have at it because I know you got a lot to say about this one.
Okay, Sean took my biggest thing. The Yankees uniform is iconic. They don't even have their names on the back of the uniforms. So now you're going to put freaking Hankook tires and Jersey Mike subs. Like, that just sounds ridiculous to me. And then the players who play in Target Field, are they going to have a target on their uniform? Like, this, it's bad enough that some of the fields are named like that. Like, I don't know. I'm just, I'm over the corporate grabs. Those corporations do not need more money. Okay. If we're going to put anything on a uniform, I would personally rather, and I'm getting on a soapbox right now, I don't care. I would rather they advertise for like local businesses, businesses that are run by women and BIPOC folks. Like, how about we give them some money? Because all these corporations are run by old white men. No offense, guys. So they don't need that money. They don't need the money. And the owners already, like, they don't need that either. It's already bad enough that every time I walk into Yankee Stadium, there's like, your mind is blown by all the freaking advertisements there. Geico, Delta, whatever, all over the place. It's just it's like aesthetically just like too overwhelming to look at. If you're like, a lay person who just like goes to a game for the first time ever, I'm able to tune it out, sure, because I'm a major baseball fan and I just want to watch the game, able to tune it out. But to see it on the uniforms, I don't know. That's just going to take away from uniforms. And as somebody who, I like to be mindful of what I'm wearing. What if the corporate logo doesn't match your uniform too? That's going to look silly as well. I mean, come on, because all the teams except for the Yankees have like 5,000 uniforms. That Toronto throwback, like all the throwback uniforms that all the teams have.
Those are cool.
What's the team that like their throwback is like yellow and brown? And then what if
Padres.
their corporate? Yes. What if their corporate sponsor is like pink and purple? Oh, that's gonna look horrible. Or when they do the city special ones, like when the
Dodgers did it last year. We talked about it when they have the blue pants and the blue jersey, and it looked like a softball uniform.
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I just and then when I think about like I'm not buying a jersey with logos on it. I'm sorry. You'll never catch me wearing a jersey with logos on it.
Only
ever.
throwbacks for you moving forward.
Always, always. I think that I don't know. I have a whole lot of opinions about it. I think it's horrible. And dumb that the corporations have so many. They already advertise on bases. They advertise on the green screen behind the batters. They advertise all over the fields. Like you could see it all the time. Commercials, everything. They don't need to be on the uniforms.
Yeah, I mean, again, I was up in arms about it with the NBA, and then kind of just tuned it out. And I think that's like you were saying, though. At times you become numb to it, and that's when you stop
but the
caring about
NBA
it.
is a tank top and shorts. We're talking about full blown, like.
I get it. I'm not. Listen, I totally understand. I have a feeling, though, a lot of it, like the Nike swoosh. I like the Nike logo as a fan of theirs, so it doesn't. Yeah, it's fine, whatever. And you kind of just stop seeing it after a while. And then, the New Era logo on the side of the hat, same type of thing. I think you just become numb to it. They're just hoping that you become numb to it and you just ignore it and move on. Because from what I understand, it's going to be on the batting helmets and it's also going to be on the sleeve, kind of around, there, just on the side.
So if Luke Voigt's wearing a uniform, you're not even going to be able to see the logo anyway because he rolls the sleeves up because he wants everybody to see his guns. Yes. Okay, and Sean, I'm on here for multiple reasons. One of them is that I am a heterosexual female, so I'm just going to say this for all of the fans who are attracted to baseball players' uniforms like I am, whether you're male or female. I don't want to see anything distracting my John Carlin Stanton from how he already looks in his uniform because he's perfect. I don't want to see a pizza logo on him. I don't want to see Modell's, nothing. I just need to see him in his uniform. Thank you. I'm done.
They could paint it on like you did on the Sports Illustrated cover.
Well, there you go. You could do that.
With a big yellow Nikon sign on.
All right, so I guess let's go ahead and jump into some talk. Sean, you're here. Your team's the Toronto Blue Jays. And Yankee fans, you should be paying attention to this too, because we always see a heck of a lot of the Toronto Blue Jays, and they've been the up-and-coming team in the division for a while, and they have arrived. I mean, we barely edged them out last year to secure that wild card spot. When we went into Fenway, and some of us drove up there and went to that game and enjoyed the somewhat of experience to go into the situation, but then was like, oh, Jesus Christ, at the end. Sean, thoughts, excitement overall about your Toronto Blue Jays? Are you guys, are you going to take this division? Because I'm seeing a lot of people are saying you're the favorites now.
Yeah, man. It's first of all, super exciting. Last year was a good season because you knew they were young and up and coming, and the Blue Jays have this energy that a lot of teams do not have. They have a clubhouse that literally enjoys each other's company. They brought out the home run jackets with little things and there was no advertising, which was awesome. But and even when Robbie Ray, one of his last games, he had an amazing game, flirted with a no-hitter, I believe, and they threw the jacket on him, and and they're always dancing. So they're a fun team to watch, just in general. But they're so talented, and the team that started the last 2021 season is not the same team that finished it. They addressed their bullpen. Trading for Jose Barrios was huge. So they were already in a better spot than they were in starting last season. And now, of course, the Kevin Gausman, the trade for Matt Chapman. And we keep hearing they're not done. We keep hearing that they were in on just about everybody, which, there was a time when, as a Blue Jays fan, you would never believe that. Okay, we're just being used to drive up the price for the Yankees. Right, but
we're getting used all the time for that. So
yeah. It's a strange time to be a baseball fan because it's like the things are backwards now. But they've got the financial ability, they've got the talent that they can use to augment the team should they need to mid-season. So the expectations are incredibly high, probably higher than they've been for a long time. In Toronto, and rightfully so, because like I said, they were 20 games above 500 last year. And when you look across the division, there hasn't been a whole lot of progress among the the other teams, the New Yorks, the Bostons, the Rays. I guess you can count Corey Kluber as an addition. I'm sure you guys would disagree with that, but so if you're a Blue Jays fan, you have to be liking where things are, and then you'll go to Fangraphs, and I think I've got it here. 91% making the playoffs, whereas it's winning the division at 46%. I mean, we haven't seen numbers like that in a long time. So, of course, you still have to play the game, but if they're looking like one of the better teams in all of baseball. So, I don't think it's a stretch, and it's not me being a homer. I think they have a real shot at this division.
No, I agree. I mean, if you had to look at it right now on paper, the Blue Jays would be considered one of the favorites. We both know that all of us know that the Rays just don't seem to go away. The names don't even matter. They just seem to find a way through their analytics department. They stretch the dollar better than anyone I've ever seen in maybe any form of anything. It's astonishing what they do. I have a lot of respect for the organization themselves. The Yankees and Rays have started to have a heated rivalry there, so I can start to actually for a long time I was just kind of like, I can't hate. They're still the freaking Devil Rays. Like, how can I actually hate them? They're whatever. But now it's like, no, you've got my attention. Now you have the attention. We're throwing at each other and stuff like that. This fight's happening. There's actually like dislike now. Welcome to the AL East. You finally officially arrived. You're here. But yeah, with the Red Sox will probably be around somewhere, but I don't see them being on the level of the Rays, Blue Jays. I'll even take the Yankees as currently constituted. I would still put them ahead of the Red Sox and the Orioles. They're the ones who have been banished now to suck for quite some time until they get their act together. But with the Blue Jays, though, they have a young, exciting core. With Vlad Guerrero Jr., mentioned Bo Bichette earlier. Matt Chapman, still he can pick it at third. The offense, I know, took a hit last year, but we'll see now that he's got protection in a lineup that's really loaded there.
Yeah, and he hit a home run today, and his hip looks pretty good, or at least it did in that swing. He says he's fully healthy, feeling like he did a few years ago when he put up 30 home runs or whatever it was. And a move to the AL East for him is going to be huge. He's not hitting in Oakland anymore. I'm sure he's thankful for that. So it's I've been screaming for Matt Chapman since probably the season ended, and I'm just beyond excited that they managed to finally pull it off, because I think it was going to happen anyway, but it took a little longer than I was comfortable with. But
what I don't want is you guys getting Jose Ramirez. I saw that out there, and I saw some action on Twitter from you regarding that. That would be, whatever. I would like Jose Ramirez on our team, being that his contract is awfully affordable and he's a monster. But that would have been disgusting. You went in through him at second base, Chapman, Bo Bichette. And what's your take on Vlad Guerrero at first base? Now, you get to see him more than we do. So
yeah, he's actually far better than people give him credit for. Bo Bichette is a work in progress on defense, and I think Vladdy saved him a number of errors last year just from picking it out of the dirt. So the athleticism that he has to play third, which didn't go so well, he brought over to first base. And in all honesty, I think there's a lot of focus on his bat, obviously, but I don't think enough people are paying attention to that glove. It's going to improve, and I think he's going to be quite a solid defender. And he's still young, right? He's got a lot of time to grow into that position, given that it was his first full year in that position. So I think it's underrated just how good he is over there with the glove.
Okay. And George Springer, thoughts on is he going to stay healthy this year?
I have contributed to the George Springer bubble wrap fund. And if I have to sacrifice a chicken or whatever I need to do to keep him healthy, like we saw in such limited playing time how impactful he can be. With the glove and the bat. So if he can be healthy, man, this team is just that much more dangerous.
No, they are. I mean, that lineup is pretty darn loaded. I mean, I know there are a lot of Yankee fans who will be like, oh, Yanks had their problems on offense last year, but I do see some bounce backs coming. But, I mean, the Blue Jays will be right there, with the best offenses in baseball. But do you feel overall the defense has been improved enough because that was the bugaboo last season?
Yeah, and I think Matt Chapman is a huge addition in that regard. Not only because Santiago Espinal did an admirable job last year. He put up, I think it was 5 outs above average, which is pretty solid. And he chipped in with the bat as well. So this isn't a knock on him, but I mean Matt Chapman is one of the top defenders in all of baseball, so you're going to get better. But what really is interesting is that Chapman's numbers going toward first base are actually pretty good, and Bo Bichette's numbers going toward third base are actually pretty terrible. So I think having Matt Chapman at third will only also help Bo Bichette at short as well. So I think that, and whatever Marcus Semien was able to do to impart on Bo last season, Matt Chapman has already, his first day in camp went up to Luis Rivera and said, I'll help out with the young guys. What do you need me to do? That kind of thing. And I think if he can, help Bo and further his defense, I think it's going to be, kind of an added bonus as well. Outfield, man, I don't know what they're going to do. They're going to have to Lourdes Gurriel Jr. He needs Google Maps every time the ball's hit to the outfield. And I feel bad for the guy, right? Because he has gotten better. Teoscar Hernandez is not exactly a Gold Glover himself, and Randall Grichuk right now is a bench guy who can fill in at center field if needed. But there's nobody in the outfield who's going to challenge, for a Gold Glove or anything like that. But overall, I think, their defense has gotten better. And we have to remember, too, that part of the problem last year was they had Kevin Biggio at third base for the beginning of the season, and that was a disaster. So him going back to second base, his natural position, of course, assuming there is no trade for Jose Ramirez. Yeah, I can see the look on your face now.
No.
Yeah. But I think that'll help as well. And of course, Danny Jansen behind the dish is a solid defensive catcher as well.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you what the hell happened to Kevin Biggio, man? Offensively though, I also had him on my fantasy team. Yes, I had Biggio and Bichette on my fantasy team. One worked out, the other one got dropped mid-season. What is going on with him?
And you probably held on to him a little bit too long, actually.
Oh, for sure. Because I kept waiting for it. I'm like, no, I'm going to trade him, and the guy's going to steal 50 bases or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to really regret it. So.
No, I joked on our podcast. I joked that Kevin Biggio actually hurt his neck just by watching all the balls go past him at third base. But he did had a neck injury that he was trying to battle through. He was playing out of position. He was trying to be the good teammate and doing what the team needed him to do. And I think he suffered for it. And it happens to some guys. They try to go out of position, and it really messes with them. It messes with their bat, right, and all of that. So I think the big thing with Kevin Biggio, he's got to be healthy, and he'll be playing second base his normal position. And if I were you, I'd be picking him up in any fantasy league that measures on base percentage, because he's not going to give you an average. He'll hit about 15 or so home runs, steal maybe 15 bases, but that on base percentage will always be there. And I think, in all honesty, if the Blue Jays are going to have success, they kind of need him. And I would put him down in that 9 hole, use that on base percentage, get anything else as gravy, and away you go. And I think you'll be just fine. But you're right. I think there's a lot of people who kind of just scratched their head last year, like, what's going on with this guy?
Yeah, I expected him to blow up. I mean, and it just totally didn't happen. And I guess, Lisa, we've seen some of that too with Gleyber Torres, him playing out of position the last 2 seasons, and then his offensive numbers went in the toilet as well. And now we're moving him back to second base, and hopefully he finds the bat again. Lisa, you got any questions regarding the Blue Jays?
No, I just I'm really happy that you mentioned the home run jacket and whatnot, because one of the things I love is seeing like fun and energy in dugouts. And I feel like a lot of teams have been missing that. Like, even for a while, the Yankees missed that. Like, once Nick Swisher left the team, there wasn't fun for a while. So I I really appreciate when teams do that stuff. Even when the Red Sox do that they're the shopping cart one.
Yeah, the laundry.
I think that's hilarious. I think that's so hilarious.
I hate when I see
it. I hate when I see it when they play the Yankees, but like I just think it brings the fun element. And I think that when you play, as somebody who grew up playing baseball and softball, like that's the biggest element about it that I love. Like the fun, the camaraderie, the team, like, yeah, you want to win games, but you want to have fun too. So I love when I see teams do those, those cute little things. And I used to think Vlad Guerrero Sr. was a freaking beast. Like the way he swung the bat, I was like, how does your back not break? Like he swung it just as hard as Gary Sheffield used to swing it, and it would like blow my mind. So to see his son being just as successful, like I like watching the younger generation when their parents were in the league and watching them. I think it's really cool just to see, do they live up to it? Do they exceed expectations? And when they're just as good, if not better, it's just really cool because it's generational, and that's another way that you keep people watching baseball, over and over for so many years. So yeah, there are some fun things that I like to observe from the Blue Jays. I do not like when they win, but other than that, yeah, there's definitely some players that stand out to me, and it's exciting to watch that team because I like their young energy for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you got to remember, like, they're making millions and millions of dollars, but they're playing a kid's game,
Yes.
And if you can't have fun playing the game, then you don't belong there, because there are hundreds, if not thousands, of guys in the minor leagues who have given up everything, and they'll never get to where you are. So, step aside if you're not having fun. Let somebody else do it because you're playing a game for a living.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think we also got to remember too is that they are 20-something-year-old, adults playing the game. I mean, they are pretty young men that are playing the game. So you want them to be, exuberant, have fun and energy and stuff like that. And like Lisa, you mentioned too about the generational players. I mean, the Blue Jays are like the epitome of that.
Yeah.
Bo Bichette and Vlad Guerrero and
Biggio.
Kevin Biggio.
Yep.
It's kind of nuts that they're all on one team too, and they're all doing it. So it's got to be pretty cool, for some of their dads. I'm sure they have attended games and things like that, and you kind of like see them in the stands or in the owners' boxes or whatever. They'll be there. I'm sure they have pretty damn good seats to go watch their kids play. But yeah, no, it is pretty cool to see that kind of thing though. Well, actually, Raul's got a comment there. The Toronto Blue Jays will contend for the AL East in the division and at least the playoff spot. Yeah, I think we might have most of the division make it. Everyone but the Orioles make it. I would not be shocked if that happens.
Yeah, I don't know. Tampa Bay, it's funny because they, on paper, they haven't really done a whole lot to kind of build on or maintain whatever success they've had. But they're always right there, and they're pitching. They have pitching depth that nobody else has, and they use it better than anybody else. So, there's that fear, and man, when they were rumored to be in on Freddie Freeman,
shocked.
I got scared.
I was nervous when you guys were involved in it because I'm like, listen, enough with this crap. Like it has to draw a line at some point. And then the Yankees were supposedly involved, and then I was just like, listen, just go to the Dodgers. Just don't go to the damn Rays or the Jays or the Red Sox. Just stay out of the division out, and I'll be happy. It's such a weird thing, weird feeling here with this. All right, so I guess let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the Yankees offseason so far, what we've had so far. Lisa, I know you've researched some numbers here on some of the guys we've got, but I think the guy we want to start off with, though, since we have Sean here, is Josh Donaldson. We traded from the Minnesota Twins. That's when the Yanks picked up Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, which will be IKF. I'm not going to keep on tongue-tying myself like that and keep on going with it. But we also unloaded Gary Sanchez, just in case you missed that one. And unfortunately, Gio Urshela, who was actually very beloved and also has connections with the Blue Jays as well. We've known Donaldson from afar, mainly in his Blue Jays days. you want to give us any kind of an insight, or maybe what you saw from Donaldson on a day in and day out basis? I know he hasn't been with you guys in a couple of years, but that's the chunk of his career.
Yeah, no, he was when he came over, like trading to get a third baseman from Oakland and giving them
Sounds familiar.
Right. And then, really not missing any of the pieces you gave up. So stealing Josh Donaldson in 2014, November or whatever it was huge. And he came over at work ethic, set a great example. He was somebody who would play hard, very intense and all of that stuff. And Blue Jays fans, Canadian fans, that's the guy you want, that worker. And then the relationship kind of soured between him and the front office, where they just, it was over a calf injury. They couldn't agree on who was right in the treatment and who wasn't right in that treatment. And then so he had to go, it was his time anyway, and they were rebuilding at that time anyway. But you know what, you're going to get, Josh Donaldson's going to give you everything he has. And I think, I can't recall if it was the beginning of the episode or even before we went on air, we were talking about people who can play in New York and people who just can't. Mm-hmm. And I think Josh Donaldson, you're going to find, is one person that absolutely can. He loves the spotlight. He loves the being the guy in the moment. So I think you'll Yankee fans will love that part. I just don't know how much you're going to get to see him. I don't know if he can stay healthy for a whole season. If he can, then you guys you won yourself a trade just by him alone. And then of course adding the IKF, I'm just gonna go with take your lead on that one. I think that's an added bonus too. So I think you're gonna get a good, decent player in Josh Donaldson. He's not the player he was 6 years ago, but if he's healthy, he'll help you win for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So Lisa, any numbers on the Josh Donaldson and IKF to run by here?
Yes, I have their career stats and some fun facts about them. So Josh Donaldson is third baseman, and he bats and throws righty. Do you know what his nickname is? Because I didn't.
Is it the Rainmaker?
The bringer of rain.
Bringer of rain?
Bringer of rain.
Right.
So we'll see how that plays out because the Yankees love some good nicknames. He's going to be wearing number 28, if I'm not mistaken. And his career stats are he's had 4,379 at-bats, 739 runs, 1,179 hits, 251 home runs, 728 RBIs, 649 walks, 1,023 strikeouts, 38 stolen bases. His overall career average is a 269. His on-base percentage is 367. His OPS is 872, and his slugging percentage is 505. And I learned how to pronounce his name. It's Isaiah Kiner Falefa. And right now, Booney is calling him Kiner, and he's like, I'm not even going to try. He's like, I'm going to come up with a nickname. But Aaron Boone tends to put just the Y at the end, so you can't call him Kiney because that just doesn't sound right. So
I think he's Kiney.
No, please. He does have a nickname. As of right now, it's Izzy, I guess, for Isaiah. He's a shortstop. He bats and throws righty. He was born in Honolulu, Hawaii, and he is of Hawaiian, Samoan, and Japanese descent, which I think is a really cool fun fact. And he wears number 12 as of right now. His career stats are 1,404 at-bats, 168 runs, 372 homers. I'm sorry, hits. 16 home runs, 118 RBIs, 84 walks, 233 strikeouts, 38 stolen bases. His average is 265. His on-base percentage is 316. His OPS is 670, and his slugging average is 354. So we'll see how they both play out for the team. I also, just continue to wonder what all of these decisions mean for one of my favorites these days, DJ LeMahieu. I feel like he's just going to become the overall utility guy, which I think is a little bit of a waste because he's so talented. So I hope they find a way to use him consistently because he's brought a lot to the team. But we'll see. I'm sad that Gio Urshela, he was one of my faves last year for sure. He brought a lot of energy, stepped up when the Yankees needed him. Gary Sanchez, bye. I got over that very quickly last year. The Kraken left the building. I wish him well on the Twins, but I'm glad he's not in the pinstripes anymore, or in our pinstripes anymore. And Luke Voigt, we all love the Luke chants. I couldn't. Ed knows I had a very big problem with how many buttons he left unbuttoned on his jersey. I thought that was ridiculous. There's a couple of players in the league that do that a little bit too much, but yeah, I saw the writing on the wall for Luke Voigt. By the way, do you all know his full name?
Luke Voigt?
Yes, that's another fun fact.
Lucas?
Nope.
Yeah, Lucas?
Nope.
I don't know.
Louis Linwood Voigt.
Wow. Okay.
That changes things.
That does.
Yeah, it does. I knew Ed would find that kind of interesting.
Wow. I wasn't. I just kind of ran with Lucas. I assumed it.
Yeah.
But, all right. Sean, I know you got to get going, so we'll let you head out. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Give us some in-depth on a team that we're going to see a heck of a lot of this season. And we'll talk soon during the season, man. Once there's a big Yankees Blue Jays series, perhaps down the line.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I have a feeling we're going to have that. So maybe we'll get together and have you back for that one.
Absolutely. That would be awesome. And I'll have you both on the Jays from the Couch podcast as well coming up because it's going to be a fun season. So I'm looking forward to it. And thank you both for having me on. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. Lisa, it was nice meeting you. And Ed, it was good seeing you again.
Yeah, same here, man. And let me know. We'll chat offline and we'll come on Jays on the Couch. We'll jump on there.
Absolutely.
All right. Take it easy.
All right. Take care, guys.
All right. So, yeah, we'll get into let's dive in more into the Yankees. We got some overall talk and stuff. I know there's been a lot of fans that are kind of like killing them on Twitter regarding the moves that they've made. They don't make any sense and this and that, especially regarding the IKF and Donaldson trade. Listen, to me, the overall sense seems like they feel like the approach that the Yanks have had for the last couple of seasons, getting a bunch of sluggers who are going to strike out a bunch and just hit bombs, and then we'll get hard-throwing pitchers, and that's pretty much we'll hope for the best. It hasn't worked out. The defense has been suspect for a couple of years now. It's progressively getting worse. It has gotten worse. And the strikeouts have piled up, but the home runs have not, and the wins have not. So I think they decided to go ahead and go into a slightly different direction. And the players that they've brought in are guys who don't strike out as much. IKF is not a big strikeout guy. Josh Donaldson's not a big strikeout guy. And, like Anthony Rizzo, bringing him back is not a big strikeout guy, even though you did have Joey Gallo last year and he's back. So I think that's something that's there. And defense is being stressed. I mean, we could take a look at the trade we're, mainly focused on. Is they're going to get better defensively at shortstop with IKF versus Gleyber Torres. And I'm going to say Gio's a great third baseman, but I honestly do think Josh Donaldson's probably isn't much of a drop-off over there. He's no slouch, but the question is going to be, can he stay on the field? I think that's the question, but I think he's a better hitter than Gio Urshela. I think Gio Urshela topped out a couple of years ago. He's never going to reach those numbers again. And it does suck to lose his heart, because he did. He made that catch diving into the third base dugout and everything like that, and that was fantastic. And he's a very likable guy, the whole happy fellow thing and stuff. But Josh Donaldson is going to bring something else to the clubhouse, like Sean had mentioned. He's a guy who likes the spotlight. I think he's going to give the Yankees an edge, because the Yankees have been called a soft team, though, for a couple of years now. That's been a knock, and it's been going around that they're kind of soft. So this is the guy that isn't. He's a hard-nosed dude, man.
When I hear that a guy likes the spotlight, though, I instantly think about A-Rod, and I'm like, I don't want that kind of energy again. I think there's a couple of guys that like the spotlight. I do think Garrett Cole loves the spotlight. He loves being the guy that you put out there in the big games. I feel like there's a couple other guys that enjoy. I think Aaron Judge likes it in a different kind of way. Like he likes the pressure games. So, I don't want that guy that's gonna like take things over the way Alex Rodriguez desperately tried to do for years. And you know how I feel about him, so of course I'm going like extra hard on that. But I mean, we'll see what he brings to the table. I always get excited about like guys joining the team and seeing what they bring, because energy needs to be shaken up. I think on a fairly consistent basis, not crazy, but just like added to it. I think we always need to add little pieces in. And I also want to remind the Yankees, like we've had over the years one of the best farm systems ever, right? Like continue to utilize those guys too and build them up. I know we saw a couple of the minor leaguers playing. Anthony Volpe was on the field for a couple innings. Oswaldo, blanking on his last name right now.
Peraza.
What was it?
Oswaldo Peraza. He's the other shortstop.
Yeah. I guess whoever it was, he hit a grand slam during the game.
About Oswaldo Cabrera. Sorry,
Cabrera. It was Cabrera. Yeah. Oswaldo Cabrera hit a grand slam during the game today that put the Yankees over. Unfortunately, they ended up losing the game, but like they were losing, and then he hit that grand slam. There's that energy that we need, right? Like just watching the guys gel is what's exciting to me about preseason, and then seeing how that comes to life during the regular season. Like those are some of the things that excite me about it. So we'll see how all of this comes to play out when it starts to matter.
Yeah, and I guess the criticism we could say with this offseason, because a lot of I mentioned before we went on, the Yankees Twitter is a very crazy place to be. Mm-hmm. Right? Like it is. And fans calling the team cheap is kind of insane.
It's ridiculous.
They're not being cheap. If you want to talk about their allocation of funds, that could be another story, because you had the situation with the with the Twins, where you went ahead and you made the trade for Donaldson and IKF, and you took on Donaldson's $50 million over the next 2 years. And then you're spending money because they did increase payroll, obviously, and they're going to be one of the top payrolls here. And that allowed the Twins, though, to go ahead and sign Carlos Correa with that same money that they saved from the Yankees salary. And I think that's the thing that drove a lot of fans over the edge. But then there's other part of the fan base that doesn't want Carlos Correa anywhere near the Yankees because he was with the Astros and was a cheater in the whole cheating scandal. So I think it's very mixed. I will admit I'm one of the people who would have been fine with giving that same contract to Carlos Correa. I had no problem with it. Listen, he's a talented ball player. He could help the Yankees win. Short-term contract would have been fine with me. So if the idea was to have Carlos Correa and Gio Urshela on the left side of the Yankees infield versus Josh Donaldson and IKF, I probably would have went ahead and went with the Correa Gio Urshela thing. Mm-hmm. Unless the Yankees just in general they wanted no part of Carlos Correa. I don't think it was a financial thing. I think maybe they just didn't want him on the team. They're just kind of like, listen, that's not our kind of guy. We're going to go with these guys instead. And we'll see what happens and how that shakes out. Gary Sanchez moving on, that just needed to happen. I think it just needed to happen for the Yankees, and it needed to happen for Gary Sanchez. Just as some players just need a change of scenery. The Gio Urshela thing kind of sucks. But, again, I think Donaldson can fill that need. And I do appreciate him getting the edge, or giving the Yankees an edge this season. Mm-hmm. Maybe a little toughness, to go along with, some of the other guys that we have on the team. So I think there's value there in that.
Also, we might end up getting Correa anyway, because his contract, the stipulations in his contract say that after every year he can kind of look around and see what's out there. And so you never know. He might, and everybody, I think the people who are mad that we didn't get him were mad because during the off season he was posting pictures while in New York and wearing, the Yankees colors. Like they thought it was like a subliminal message thing, and maybe he was trying to do that and the Yankees weren't biting, but like, I don't know. To call the Yankees cheap is ridiculous. I mean, they historically spend like way more than everybody else. So People used to complain about that all the time. Like,
they're going to complain one way or the other, man. They're going to complain one way or the other. Raul's dropping in too. The Yankees are not cheap with their payroll, but they're not allocating the money in the right places for the team. That is a fair criticism. That's what I was saying with Josh Donaldson. If you're against Donaldson and he turns out to be injury prone the next 2 seasons, then you're right. It blows up in their face, that part of it, and you should have took those funds and maybe allocated them elsewhere. But to call them cheap is short-sighted and not really doing your homework. So I think, you got to get off that and say maybe they're not spending it in the right places. And Raul, your owner, welcome to the big market crew. Because Steve Cohen, Uncle Stevie, as the Met fans like to call him, you're with the big boys now. So the whole little engine that could thing, that's over with. You're right there with the Red Sox and us and the Dodgers. Welcome to the crew, because now we're all in the big market.
Club.
Exactly. I'm sure he's excited about that. But yeah, the trading of Luke Voit was a pretty obvious thing, I thought. I mean, we all saw that. As soon as they traded for Rizzo last year, you knew that was just a matter of time.
Yeah.
And they did get a young pitching prospect who is in single-A ball now, so we'll see how he ends up turning out. But I know he throws 102, so that's cool. But don't lower your arm, kid. Like, just don't do that. Mm-hmm. But the big thing that I wanted to touch on, though, before we wrap it up, is shortstop position. Them going ahead and not passing on Correa, passing on Story, passing on Seager and Marcus Semien, and Hal Steinbrenner had mentioned this just last week. They're all in on Anthony Volpe.
Yeah,
like that's it. This is all in. I mean, he's going to be in Double-A this season. I'm hoping he makes it through Double and Triple-A kind of fast, because my only concern is we do have Aaron Judge, 30 years old. Stanton, 31 years old. Cole, around that same age. We don't need to waste 2 years of their prime waiting for Volpe. Like, that's kind of my only concern with that strategy. But they are all in, though. They're going to wait for this kid. IKF was a stopgap shortstop on the cheaper side. Hopefully he does the job for a year or two, and then it's going to be Anthony Volpe time, if not sooner. I mean, who knows? He could go ahead and breeze through and get here faster. Knowing the Yankees, they're not going to rush him, though. So.
Yeah, they were talking about that at the game today. I think like right before he joined in, and they were saying the Yankees have actually 3 shortstop prospects in the pipeline, and he being the one that they are like putting all of their stock in. So, and one of the things they were saying was, I hope this isn't putting pressure on him, but I can't imagine the amount of pressure he feels knowing that like he's already labeled the Yankee of the future, like the Derek Jeter of the future generations. That's a huge amount of pressure to put on somebody. So, I hope it's not like Gary Sanchez, who also grew up with the Yankees and, was supposed to be this amazing person. There were a couple other guys that, I'm blanking on this guy's name. He pitched a little bit today too. He was part of the 3 Bs in pitching. Dellin Betances. Benuelos, yes, he pitched today, and they were saying he was supposed to be like one of these like amazing guys, and the only one of the 3 Bs that had any success was Dellin Betances, and you don't really hear about him that much anymore either, unfortunately. So I really hope Volpe's able to, kind of live up to those expectations, but that is an enormous amount of pressure in one of the biggest market in MLB. So we'll see how he does. But yeah, it'll just to know that there's, people like him out there. It's exciting. So.
Oh, listen, as Garrett Cole had said, pressure is a privilege, right? So, I mean, then people don't get pressure who are not worthy of it, or that you have the pressure on you because you have the talent, you have the tools, and there's a reason for it. So.
Right, but it can also trip you up because like if you have, like a 10-game bad game streak, then people are like, oh, all the hype was for nothing. And I mean, people are fickle, right? Fans of any sport, they're very fickle about their players. So I just hope he's able to pull through the times where he will, of course, like everybody else, have bad games, because baseball is a long season. It's not as quick and done as football is. You don't play once a week, you play every day. Especially if you're the starting shortstop, you're going to be playing every day, 162 games with random Mondays off, as we talked about. And listen, a good batting average in baseball, a really good batting average in baseball is anything over 300. That means 3 times out of 10 you hit the damn ball. Like it's the statistics are, like
it's a game of failure.
Yeah, it's a total game of failure. You do well when you fail the least in the game, and when you fail the least, it's like statistically not a great score anyway. So I just hope that he's able to kind of push through that, because he's a young guy, and I'm sure even his family, the pressure of his family to be break into the majors too. I mean, everybody goes through that, I understand, but it's just a lot.
Yeah, and I'm hoping we get to see him sooner than later, because that's just one of my concerns about like going all in on the young shortstops. It's just this team is supposed to be trying to win now, because of, again, you have Aaron Judge, who that's a whole nother conversation that we could have during the season about them signing Judge to an extension, which my guess is that's going to be after the season, because the Yankees rarely ever sign anyone to an extension before their contract expires. So that's going to be my guess, and they probably want to see him stay healthy for another season.
Yeah.
Which is also fair. He did last season. I just want to make sure he can do it again before you commit to the guy. But again, he will be, he's 30 years old. He's not getting any, not that he's on the old side, but you want to strike now while the prime years are there. And I think one of the other moves that I know it's been thrown out there a lot is with Oakland. That trade with Sean Manaea or Frankie Montas to upgrade the starting rotation. Cashman, you got to make that happen. You got to land one of those two. You can't be linked to all these players and just watch them all go by the board. If anything, Cashman's been great with a lot of trades. I know a lot of fans who kind of give him a lot of crap, but listen, he's the one who, remember, he found Didi Gregorius, who was a light-hitting, defensive shortstop who went on and was pretty damn good for the Yankees during his time and hit his more than his share. He was a middle-of-the-order bat, when we let him go. He found Luke Voigt, he found Gio Urshela, he found DJ LeMahieu, which you had mentioned. The question is, where does he fit now in the infield? Because he has to play somewhere, and he should be playing every day. And this was the original plan that they had for him, was to have him play different positions every single day. I don't particularly love that. That doesn't sound like that's great. I have a feeling somebody's still going to get moved, and probably in an Oakland trade, if it does happen. Whether if it's Gleyber Torres, DJ doesn't make any sense to be going there because, again, he's 33 years old now. They have no need for him. I think Gleyber might be the one to go, to tell you the truth. That's going to be my guess. No, I know. I like the kid too, but there's only so many positions.
You know who it should be, but nobody's going to want him. Should be Aaron Hicks.
No one's taking him. We know how that's going to go. If only Gleyber Torres can play center field, then we would go ahead and
so stuck with him. We are so stuck with him. Speaking of Gleyber Torres, I just want to shout him out because he and his wife are expecting a baby, they didn't know if he could play in today's game, but apparently, I guess the doctor said she probably wouldn't give birth till at least tonight. So he came and showed up and played 4 innings, and did pretty well, and now he's going to be a daddy. So congrats to him and his wife.
Congrats, Gleyber. And I don't know his wife's name off the top of my head. I can't.
Elizabeth.
Okay. Well, if they ever catch this, congratulations to them as well. Anything before we wrap this thing up?
I just want to say that Michael K's kids got the chance to meet some of the players today, and they showed when they met Giancarlo Stanton, and he was so adorable with them and trying to talk to them. And both of the kids just kept looking up at him and smiling. And his son Charlie walked away and walked behind the mom. Charlie, man, you wasted a prime opportunity. Oh man, I wish that was me. But it was cute to see him interacting with the kids, and I think they met Aaron Judge too, and he said he was just speechless looking at Aaron Judge. So that's cute.
They're monsters. It's them looking at wrestlers.
Yeah.
And they've never seen people this big, even though Michael K is pretty big on his own.
He is, yeah.
So, all right. So I think that kind of pretty much wraps it up for us today in this episode. And there we go. We can't close it out without little Frankie there. So thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. If you joined us on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram and Twitter, wherever you found us. Always appreciate it. Go ahead and subscribe to Pop Culture Pros on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. Join the Empire 161 Show group on Facebook and join the Pop Culture Pros Facebook page as well. Join the daily conversation where we share a bunch of news and stuff like that on a regular basis that do not make the show. And if you like what you heard here, go ahead and check out more Pop Culture Pros. If you're into comic books, you can check out Granny's Peach Tea on Wednesday nights. We'll be talking about the award-winning Catwoman movie starring Halle Berry this week. You can check that out along with our CW stuff. If you're into wrestling, you can check Tim and Eric out on the Just Too Sweet show on Tuesday nights. If you're into James Bond, you can check out Double O Deep Dive on Monday nights. For myself and Jason and Ginny, we talk about various James Bond films. So go ahead and check that out. If anything from A to Z, you can check out Eric on Friday nights with the A to Z show. And if you're like Raul, who's actually a Mets fan who supports our show, check out Put It in the Books. You can check out Falachi and Rodriguez, and they do a great job covering the Mets over there. So we'll be seeing you soon, probably right before opening day. Can't wait for the next episode of Empire 161 Show. Or if the Yankees make a big trade, we can go ahead and we'll jump on for a quick reaction for that. So everyone, enjoy your weekend. Have a good night. Lisa, thanks as always. And let's go Yankees.
That's right. Peace. And welcome back. Welcome back and see you soon.